CarMax, the biggest name in used cars, the giant that built its reputation as the Walmart of the auto industry, has just reported a staggering $5.3 billion loss. Let that number sink in. $5.3 billion gone. For years, CarMax was untouchable. They were the model of how to buy and sell used cars in America. Massive inventory, no haggle pricing, instant financing, and billions in annual profits. But now, the empire is cracking. The company that was once on top of the world has just delivered one of the ugliest earnings shocks the auto market has ever seen. So what happened? The same forces crushing everyday car buyers are now crushing CarMax itself. Rising interest rates, collapsing used car prices, and millions of repossessed vehicles flooding the market have turned what used to be easy profit into massive losses. CarMax isn't just selling fewer cars, they're losing money on the cars they already have. And here's the scary part. When a company as big as CarMax bleeds billions, it doesn't stay contained. This isn't just a bad quarter for one business. This is a red warning light for the entire auto industry. If CarMax is in trouble, then the whole used car market is in trouble. In today's video, we're breaking down exactly how CarMax lost $5.3 billion, why the auto market is spiraling into chaos, and what it means for you, the American driver. Buckle up, because this isn't just a corporate loss. This is a market shockwave that could change the way we buy and sell cars forever. CarMax didn't just have a bad quarter. What we're looking at is one of the largest single losses ever recorded by a used car retailer in American history. So how does a company that sold over 800,000 cars last year suddenly collapse into a $5.3 billion black hole? Here's the breakdown. CarMax makes money in three major ways. Car sales, buying used vehicles cheap and selling them higher with their no-haggle pricing model. Financing, making loans to buyers and collecting interest. Wholesale auctions, selling trade-ins and repossessed vehicles to dealers. For decades, this machine printed money. But in 2024 and now into 2025, every single piece of that business model got hit at once. First, sales volume collapsed. With interest rates pushing auto loan payments to record highs, fewer Americans can afford cars at all, let alone at CarMax's inflated sticker prices. Customers who used to drive onto a CarMax lot and leave with a car the same day are now walking away empty-handed. Second, the cars CarMax already owns are losing value. During the pandemic, CarMax and other retailers were paying insane amounts at auction just to keep inventory on their lots. Used cars were treated like gold. But today, with used car prices crashing across the country, those cars are worth thousands less than what CarMax paid for them. That's billions in inventory write-downs. In other words, they're sitting on a giant parking lot full of cars they can't sell without losing money. Third, the financing arm of CarMax is bleeding. High interest rates were supposed to help them make more money on loans. But instead, defaults are surging. Millions of Americans are falling behind on payments, repossessions are spiking, and that means CarMax's loan book is turning toxic. Instead of earning steady profits, they're eating losses from loans that will never be repaid. And finally, the wholesale side of their business is in free fall. With over 2 million repossessed cars flooding the used market this year, CarMax can't sell trade-ins or offloaded vehicles for anywhere near what they used to. Wholesale profits have turned into wholesale losses. Put all of this together and you get the staggering $5.3 billion hit. It's not just one problem, it's a perfect storm. Fewer customers, cars losing value, loans going bad, and auctions collapsing. This is why the stock market reacted so violently when CarMax announced the news. Investors aren't just worried about CarMax. They're worried that if a giant like CarMax is losing billions, every dealership in America could be next. This wasn't supposed to happen. Used cars were supposed to be a safe bet. But now, what was once the most profitable corner of the auto industry is becoming a graveyard for billion-dollar losses. CarMax's $5.3 billion loss didn't just appear out of thin air. This collapse is tied directly to the macroeconomic pressures crushing the entire auto market. And the truth is, CarMax is just the first domino. Let's break down the 4 main reasons why CarMax is bleeding cash like never before. 1. High interest rates have killed the buyer. Not long ago, you could finance a used car at 3 to 4% interest. That meant the average American could stretch their paycheck and afford a decent ride, even if the sticker price was inflated. But today, interest rates on used car loans are hitting 11, 12, sometimes even 15% for buyers with less than perfect credit. That turns a $25,000 Toyota Camry into a $600 to $700 monthly payment. The reality is simple. People don't stop driving cars, but they do stop buying new loans when payments start looking like a mortgage. CarMax depends on high turnover. They need cars moving in and out of their lots. With fewer buyers qualifying for financing, their entire engine stalls. 2. The pandemic bubble burst. Back in 2021 and 2022, used car prices skyrocketed. CarMax and other dealers were overpaying at auctions, desperate to keep cars on their lots. They gambled on the belief that Americans would keep paying record-high prices. But that bubble popped hard. In 2023 and 2024, the wholesale value of used cars started crashing, down thousands of dollars per vehicle. A pickup truck CarMax paid $35,000 for at auction might only fetch $28,000 today. Multiply that by hundreds of thousands of vehicles in their inventory, and suddenly you're staring at billions in write-downs. CarMax is literally sitting on parking lots full of losses. 3. Loan defaults are exploding. Here's the ugly truth Wall Street doesn't want to talk about. Americans are falling behind on car payments at rates we haven't seen since 2008. Repos are climbing past 2 million cars a year. And CarMax, which makes billions financing those cars, is on the front line. Every time a buyer defaults, CarMax takes back the vehicle. But in today's market, that car is worth less than the outstanding loan. So instead of breaking even, CarMax eats the loss. And with thousands of defaults stacking up, that loss becomes catastrophic. This is why their financing arm, once a golden goose, is now a liability. Instead of generating interest income, it's generating repos and red ink. 4. Wholesale auctions are dead. CarMax also runs a massive wholesale business, where they sell trade-ins and repossess cars to other dealers. But here's the catch. Those same dealers are drowning too. Independent lots are overloaded with vehicles they can't sell. That means CarMax can't move inventory at auction, or if they do, it's at rock-bottom prices. Wholesale revenue has collapsed, turning what was once steady-side income into yet another loss. The bigger picture. Put all of this together and you see why CarMax lost $5.3 billion. But the more important story is what this means for the entire US auto market. Because if the biggest used car dealer in America can't survive these conditions, what happens to the smaller players? The mom-and-pop lots? The regional chains? The franchise dealers who rely on used inventory to stay afloat? The shockwaves from CarMax's collapse are only just beginning. When a retail giant like CarMax takes a $5.3 billion hit, it's not just one company's problem. It's a shockwave that ripples through the entire US auto industry. Think of it like an earthquake. CarMax is the epicenter, but the tremors are being felt everywhere. Dealerships, banks, automakers, and even everyday drivers. 1. Dealerships are panicking. Used cars are the lifeblood of many dealerships. Even franchise dealers who sell brand new Toyotas or Chevys often make more profit off financing and used car sales than they do on shiny new models. Now that wholesale prices have tanked, dealerships are suddenly realizing the cars sitting on their lots are worth thousands less than what they paid for them. That means every day those cars sit unsold, the dealer is losing money. And here's the kicker. Dealerships can't just slash prices overnight. They're locked into financing agreements and floor plan loans with banks. If they drop prices too fast, they risk defaulting themselves. So instead, many are holding inventory hostage, waiting for a miracle buyer who never shows up. CarMax's collapse is the warning shot. Smaller dealers know, if the giant can't survive these margins, how will we? 2. Banks are tightening the screws. The next domino to wobble? The banks. Car loans are one of the most profitable products for lenders, high interest, long terms, and a steady stream of payments. But with repossessions surging past 2 million per year, banks are staring down billions in bad loans. So what do? They tighten credit. That means stricter approval standards, higher down payments, and higher interest rates. In other words, the very thing keeping buyers out of the market, expensive financing, is about to get even worse. Banks are pulling back, which will shrink the buyer pool even further. That's a death spiral for the used car industry. 3. New car sales are in trouble too. Here's a dirty secret automakers don't want to admit. New car sales depend on a healthy used car market. Why? Because trade-ins are the foundation of new purchases. If your used Honda Civic isn't worth anything at trade-in, suddenly upgrading to that $45,000 SUV doesn't make financial sense. You're stuck. CarMax losing billions signals a bigger reality. Americans' trade-ins are collapsing in value. And if trade-ins collapse, new car sales will dry up right alongside them. Automakers are staring at an inventory glut they won't be able to clear without massive discounts. And for Wall Street, that's terrifying. Because the auto industry isn't just about selling cars. It's tied to jobs, manufacturing, credit markets, and even government tax revenue. 4. Car prices are crashing, but nobody's buying. You'd think this would be good news, right? Prices falling should finally mean buyers can afford cars again. But here's the paradox. Prices are coming down, but consumer confidence is collapsing. People are scared. They're seeing headlines about layoffs, bankruptcies, and repossessions. They're hearing about CarMax bleeding billions, and that creates hesitation. Why buy now when prices might fall even further? This fear locks buyers out of the market, which in turn accelerates the crash. Dealers can't move inventory, banks won't lend, and automakers slash production. It's a vicious cycle with no easy exit. 5. Wall Street smells blood. CarMax isn't just a dealership chain. It's a publicly traded company. And when investors see a $5.3 billion loss, panic spreads fast. Short sellers are circling the auto industry like sharks. Analysts are downgrading stocks tied to cars, dealers, automakers, even lenders. Wall Street knows, if the used car giant can't stay profitable, the rest of the industry is sitting on a time bomb. And the fallout won't just be financial. When investors lose faith, companies slash costs. That means layoffs. Thousands of jobs tied to dealerships, auctions, transport companies, and auto financing firms are suddenly at risk. 6. The consumer fallout. Let's not forget the everyday driver. At the end of the day, this isn't just a market story. It's a story about American families. People who bought overpriced cars in 2021 are now underwater on their loans, owing $10,000 more than their cars are worth. Buyers who default lose their vehicles, wreck their credit, and face years locked out of the lending market. Shoppers hoping to upgrade find themselves paralyzed, wondering if the car they buy today will lose another $5,000 in value tomorrow. The collapse of CarMax isn't just a corporate loss. It's a snapshot of the pain rippling through households across America. The bigger warning. This is why CarMax's $5.3 billion meltdown matters. It's not just the fall of one company. It's the clearest signal yet that the entire auto ecosystem is breaking under pressure. Dealers, banks, automakers, and consumers are all tied to the same chain. And right now, every single link is straining. And here's the scariest part. The shockwave isn't over. In fact, the worst is still ahead. CarMax's $5.3 billion collapse isn't just a headline. It's a preview of what's coming next. The used car market has cracked wide open, and now the entire auto industry is bracing for the aftershocks. The road ahead looks rocky, uncertain, and potentially catastrophic for anyone connected to cars. Whether you're a dealer, a lender, an automaker, or just an average driver. 1. Car prices are headed lower, much lower. We've already seen used car values drop 20 to 30% from their 2021 peaks. But here's the bad news. The slide isn't over. Repossessions are flooding auctions with inventory. Dealers are desperate to move cars, slashing prices wherever they can. Banks are pushing harder on repos, which adds even more used cars to the market. This flood of supply, combined with weaker demand, means prices could fall another 15 to 20% over the next year. That's great news if you've been waiting to buy, but terrible if you already own an overpriced vehicle. By the end of 2025, we may see used cars return to pre-pandemic values, wiping out trillions in paper wealth tied up in car loans. 2. A wave of bankruptcies. CarMax may be the biggest name to stumble, but it won't be the last. Independent dealers across the country are already walking away from their businesses. Many took out loans to expand when prices were sky-high, and now they can't unload their inventory without massive losses. Expect to see waves of dealership bankruptcies and closures in the coming months. And with each closure, more jobs disappear: salespeople, mechanics, office staff, transport drivers. This is going to be a jobs crisis as much as it is a financial crisis. And the dominoes don't stop there. Smaller auto lenders who specialized in risky subprime loans are also on the edge. If repossessions continue to spike, some of these lenders will fail outright. 3. Automakers will be forced to slash prices. New car manufacturers are pretending everything is fine, but the storm is coming for them too. With trade-in values collapsing, Americans simply can't afford to upgrade. That means automakers will be sitting on bloated inventories of unsold cars. And when that happens, there's only one solution: deep discounts. By 2026, we could see something the industry hasn't experienced in decades. Brand new vehicles being sold with massive rebates, 0% financing, and fire sale pricing just to clear the lots. Automakers will hate it. Wall Street will hate it, but they won't have a choice. 4. The consumer credit crunch. Here's where things get even darker. Banks are tightening standards because they don't want to get stuck with bad loans. But the harder banks tighten, the fewer buyers can qualify for financing. This creates a brutal catch-22. Prices fall because nobody can buy. Nobody can buy because prices are falling. That cycle will crush consumer confidence. People will stop asking, "Can I afford this car?" and start asking, "Why would I buy anything at all right now?" It's the same psychology that drove the housing market crash in 2008. Once buyers lose faith, the bottom drops out. 5. The risk of a full-blown auto recession. The auto industry isn't just about cars. It's about the entire American economy. Millions of jobs are tied directly or indirectly to auto sales. States rely on sales tax revenue from vehicles. Banks rely on auto loans as a major profit engine. If this spiral accelerates, we're not just talking about a few bankrupt dealerships. We're talking about a national auto recession, one that could drag down manufacturing, finance, and even consumer spending across the board. The government may try to step in through bailouts, incentives, or tax breaks, but make no mistake, the system is already cracking. 6. The big picture: trust is broken. At the end of the day, the car market is built on trust. Buyers need to trust that the car they purchase will hold some value. Dealers need to trust that they can move inventory. Banks need to trust that borrowers will pay their loans. Automakers need to trust that consumer demand will remain steady. Right now, every one of those pillars is broken. Consumers don't trust prices. Dealers don't trust financing. Banks don't trust borrowers. Automakers don't trust the market. And when trust disappears, markets collapse. The final word: CarMax's $5.3 billion meltdown isn't just a bad earnings report. It's a red flashing warning sign that the American car market is on the brink of a historic correction. The road ahead is filled with bankruptcies, falling prices, tighter credit, and consumer pain. By the time this is over, the way Americans buy cars may look completely different. So here's the question: is this just a downturn? Or are we watching the 2025 car market meltdown in real time? Either way, buckle up, because the ride is just getting started.